Hello and welcome to Getting Your Money's Worth, the show that focuses on value. I'm Judith West, and our guest today is Randy Perskin, attorney, a divorce attorney and divorce consultant.
Yes.
Right. Okay. What's the difference in a divorce consultant and a divorce attorney? Hi, by the way. Welcome to being on the show.
Hi, and thank you for having me. It's really pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. You speak, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, you speak from firsthand. You've gone through a divorce yourself.
Yes, I have gone through
Right.
a divorce.
So you not only are academically schooled in the ways of divorce, but you pragmatically lived through one. Divorces are tough.
Divorces are very tough.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how tough they are.
I don't think people do until they have gone through it. There are all sorts of emotional issues as well as economic issues, and they are tough.
They are tough.
They're difficult.
I want to ask you something. You talk about trying, and we hear about trying to stay away from divorce, to sell. Is divorce an accumulation of a lot of small issues, or is there one thing that breaks the bank? How does a marriage get into a divorce?
Well, there are situations where there is one major issue, such as one of the spouses could be addicted to drugs or stealing from the other spouse.
But you would know that along the way, wouldn't you?
Yes, you would know that along the way, but some people don't consider a divorce until it gets the issue becomes so large and overwhelming, until they can't foresee another alternative.
But that's something that I'm thinking of in terms of what seems to be a marriage that goes along and people getting divorced 15 years later, 20. Is it putting aside the fact that it may be adultery or some kind of, is it a matter of just an accumulation of issues over the years that never get resolved? What do you find?
I find that there are marriages that end in divorce because of those very reasons. And it could be that the people are just not well suited to each other from the get-go. And there could be just issues that they never worked on together to resolve.
Right.
And the smaller issues, like day-to-day arguments, could be resolved if they talk out their differences or seek outside help.
Right. So do you offer that kind of outside help also, or?
Well,
not really.
I mean, that's
not really your bailiwick.
People come to divorce attorneys once they determine they want a divorce. A marriage counselor would offer that kind of help.
So what is the single biggest issue that drives people apart?
Well, there's all sorts of issues. There are arguments about money.
Money is
a big issue.
Money's a hot button issue. Are you seeing divorce rates increase in these tough economic times?
Well, the divorce rate is now about 50%.
Right,
So
but it has been about 50%.
It has been about 50%. I would think people would reconsider getting divorced in this tough economic time, only because there's just not enough money.
There's not enough to divide up, and there's nobody by the house, married or divorced.
Exactly.
Right.
And divorces in and of themselves are expensive. There's the attorney's fees and the appraiser's fees, and all the assets get divided, and it's just an expensive prospect.
You know, people get married because they fall in love.
Right.
So people get divorced because they fall out of love?
Well, people do fall out of love. But when people fall in love, I don't think they consider that marriage is a legal, it's a contractual situation.
It's a contract.
It's a contract between two people, and I don't think people really fully understand that.
Right. You know, when you do contracts in business with different business partners, Randy, as times change, there's kind of an automatic renewal or rediscussion of these contracts. I think that one of the things that's missing in a marriage is that the contract that you wrote when you were in your early 20s may not be appropriate in the 30s.
Exactly. And I would urge people to consider how their lives have changed between their 20s and their 30s and their 30s and their 40s, and their 40s and their 50s. Their economic situation is different. They look different. They feel different.
They act different.
They act different. They may have children where they didn't have them before, so they should always re-examine their life and talk to their spouse.
You know, you can I suppose you can renegotiate a contract.
Right.
It's difficult. I don't hear often about people renegotiating a marriage.
People renew their vows, but it's
No, I
really
don't
not
really
the
mean
same
it,
thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I don't mean in the true sense, but I guess the renegotiating is like the talking out.
Exactly.
Right.
And there are situations where people do postnuptial agreements.
What is a postnuptial?
A postnuptial agreement is like a prenuptial agreement, except it's formed after the marriage has occurred. And it's looked at a little bit more strictly by the courts, only because a prenuptial agreement is made in anticipation of marriage, whereas a postnuptial agreement, you're already married. But if you form a postnuptial agreement, it gives you the basis to examine some of those issues, your new economic situation,
Is there a willingness of people to do this kind of? I mean, I think suppose that suppose that it's a woman who makes a lot more money than her husband,
right,
and wants a postnuptial because she doesn't want to be on the hook for maybe a bigger something. I don't know. I'm like,
right.
Is there a willingness of people to do this mid-marriage?
Some people are more willing than others, and certainly if you have one partner who is making more money than the other, they might be more willing than their other.
Well, sure, the person
partner,
making the money, right?
However, if the two people talk to each other and say, we're really doing this to help us understand our situation as it is now and not in an anticipation of divorce, they could become more willing to do it.
Right, yeah. Money's a hot button issue. What about things like, is religion still a big issue, or that's kind of gone by the wayside?
Religion is not as big an issue. However, if you are very religious and married to someone who isn't, or who is a different religion,
that's a bad start to begin with, right?
Right, exactly, and it comes into play more when you have children.
Right.
If both people are religious and very concerned with their own religion, they might start arguing about how they're raising their kids.
Yeah. When people say they fall in love and they want to get married, have you ever been able to come up with all the people that you see? Have you ever been able to come up with a definition for love?
I never really have. I think a lot of it is based on physical attraction.
Right.
And there are those people who don't really know each other that long and haven't developed a sense of themselves or their partner.
They don't have their own
idea.
Self.
Exactly.
Yeah, and perhaps that's one of the things that makes these that marriages not last. By the time they discover who they are, it's too late. They're already married.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that if you get married later, perhaps in your 30s or in your late 20s, you have a better understanding of yourself rather than, when you're younger.
What about a situation where one or the other wants to leave? There doesn't appear. There obviously is something wrong, but maybe there's another man or woman on the scene, or one of the spouses is just tired of each other. And it's clearly one-sided, that one side wants a divorce, the other one isn't. It's not a mutual. Are divorces usually a mutual decision, or are they usually one-sided, Randy?
There are divorces that are mutual, but there are a lot of them that are one-sided.
Yeah. What is typical?
Well, both, really. And unfortunately, if it is one-sided, it's very difficult to persuade someone to stay, and I'm not so sure if you would want to stay with someone who doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Right.
So are the scales of justice then more friendly to the person who doesn't want the divorce? Does that person then get a better break economically, or when it comes to custody of the children? Does the person who is more the innocent victim get a better break in the eyes of the law?
Not necessarily.
Really?
They look at, in terms of property distribution, there's equitable distribution, and they have.
There's what? Equal?
There's something called equitable distribution.
Right. What is equitable distribution?
It doesn't always mean 50-50.
What does that mean?
It means that each partner comes away with what they're entitled to. So, in other words,
who decides that?
Well, the court, the judge. And basically, there is a difference between marital property, which can be divided among the spouses, and separate property. So marital property is any property that's been attained during the course of the marriage, generally.
So that's the house, the furniture, the cars.
Right. Separate property is anything before the marriage. However, there's certain property that is not marital property, even though it's been obtained during the course of the marriage.
What would that? Is it a pension plan?
No, a pension plan would be considered marital. But anything, if you have inherited money or if you have been gifted money.
So if you have inherited money, one of your parents died while you were married, is that inheritance apart from the equitable distribution?
Yes, that would be.
It stands by itself.
It stands by itself as long as you keep it in a separate account, as long as you don't essentially commingle those funds.
And if you marry someone and you come to the marriage with your own trust fund, that's yours by definition. It was yours before you got married.
Exactly.
Yeah. Pension plans, you say, are equitable distribution?
Right. Well, if they've been built up during the course of the marriage, or if they were obtained before the marriage, but there has been they've increased in value for whatever reason during the course of the marriage.
What about this business of future earnings?
Future earnings.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that could be considered in terms of alimony.
Yeah. I mean, like, someone says, I sent you to school, I lived with you, blah, 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 like a man or woman, and now you've got a very good career as a doctor or a lawyer that you've gotten kind of on the back of my sending you through school. I should get a piece of your future earnings.
Exactly.
I mean, I read about those things happening.
Right, exactly.
How does the court treat that?
The court, well, then the medical license or the legal license or whatever license becomes a marital asset.
I see.
And then there's a mathematical equation that they determine what the average person in that field would earn.
Yeah.
And,
do these kind of things get settled in the courts or pre-court by the lawyers usually?
Most cases get settled out of court, and I personally think a settlement out of court is better because it's less expensive, it's less time-consuming. The parties themselves can pretty much determine
it's less
what
rancorous.
They want. It's less rancorous, and it's better for the parties to sort of work out a settlement rather than letting the judge decide what goes where.
Right, and we have a very short time left. And what about the kids?
The kids.
Yeah.
Well, the kids.
We don't have much time for the kids, but the kids. What's the best way to handle the kids?
I think the best way is probably a joint custody situation. Now, that's different from residency because generally the kids will live with one parent, but both parents will have access and decision-making powers as to, health, education, things like that.
That seems to be the fairest and most loving way.
Exactly.
To handle with children. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we didn't exactly have a loving topic today, but I was going to say, fortunately, this is not any advice that I was looking for today, but it's good. But it's good to know, and I want to thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Sorry.
You're watching Getting Your Money's Worth. I'm Judith West. Thanks for watching.